Good morning, Seekers, and welcome back to the next episode of the Critical Grays podcast. I'm your co-host, Bodhi, also known as Bodhi on the Discords, and I'm joined tonight by my co-host, Ethan, also known as Jabroni Apologist on the Discords.
Hello.
Ethan, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself as a child, what advice would you give yourself?
Man. Well, my first idea is like don't run through as many high like grassy fields because you'll get like Lyme disease for 10 years. But a lot of that was like my parents just dragging me along on reenactments, which I really liked as a kid. So I don't know. It's like, I think I'd clap myself on the shoulder and I'd be like, Ethan, God has a plan for you and it's going to hurt. That would really be the only piece of advice I could give.
So you've had Lyme disease for 10 years?
Yeah, I won't get too far into it. So a little bit of Ethan lore, I guess. Lyme disease, when most people get it, they take antibiotics for 30, 60, 90 days, and they're fine. They beat it. There's something wrong with me. And I didn't get better. And the thing is, nothing but respect for doctors. But when you don't get better, even though they've given you the thing from the book that says it's supposed to make you better, they just want you to shoot yourself. Like they're really angry at you for not getting better. And basically, it's better now. It is actually a lot better now. Silver lining to COVID. Sorry, this is getting weirdly heavy. You started this. Silver lining to COVID is that a lot of people got long COVID, where it's like there's no quote unquote evidence of the virus still being in the body, but people are still symptomatic. So it made people kind of re-examine like, well, what if we can't prove the pathogen is still in the body, but somebody's still suffering from symptoms? But like, 10, 15 years ago when I had it, basically we had to go to people who were right on the edge of quackery to even be taken seriously. And I was like this little kid, like I'd sleep for 3 days and I had all these weird rashes and like I had all these horrible symptoms basically. And a lot of doctors were just like, they weren't even mean about it. I was being hyperbolic, but they'd be like, we can't help you because we can't prove you still have the sickness. The fact that you're still sick is not proof that you still have the sickness. So we can't give you anything.
That's wild.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah, well.
Okay, so your advice is to not get Lyme disease? Or...
Yeah, somehow avoid the ticks that are completely prolific in your area because we wiped out the natural predators of the deer in Virginia like 300 years ago. Simply do not. Simply be immune to tick bites, little child.
Okay. Ethan. Is there like a vaccine that you can get that prevents it, or?
No, it's a bacteria, and the best they can figure is in the minority of people that it affects past like the initial date that cures most people is it hides in your organs. My gallbladder just stopped working, probably because it was filled with spirochete.
Did you have to have your gallbladder removed?
Yes. In fact, when I was a kid, and I'm sorry, this is completely, you don't even have to put this in the episode. I don't mind.
No, it's going in.
Okay. When I was like 12, on a Halloween night, which is never a good start to a story. It was the first year where I was like, I didn't feel like trick-or-treating. And I was just kind of like bumming around the house. So Zog's going to fucking kill me for this. I ended up swallowing a sewing needle. Not because like I was trying to hurt myself or because it was literally like my dad did a lot of sewing when I was a kid. And he'd have like a needle in his mouth when he was like sewing, and I'm like, wow, that looks cool. And I just like rolled a critical graze. I rolled a nat 1. I was like, I'll put a needle in my mouth and it'll be cool. I fucking swallowed the fucker. And they had to take me in and play crane game with my insides 3 times. I was like in and out of like anesthesia. They're like, okay, we waited like 6, 8, 10 hours. We can give you the drug again. We failed to get the needle last time because I was like 11 and I swallowed a needle and I'm like, I want to eat some pizza now. So it wasn't just the needle in my stomach. I also had a bunch of pizza on top of the needle. And they finally got it out and they looked at my chart and they're like, he's supposed to get his gallbladder out in like a week. Let's just do it now. So I got a twofer.
Nice. Okay. Man, I did not expect to learn this much about you this
Okay.
evening.
The last thing I'll add, sorry, is I
Go
know
ahead.
this is an exceedingly stupid medical story, and I was, of course, even as being a dumb child, I was like, "Wow, that was really dumb. I hope my parents aren't mad at me." And I asked my dad, like, "Hey, are you guys mad at me? I know this was really stupid." And my dad just said, "Everybody gets one."
Uh,
All right, sorry about that.
well, you're actually, I know a couple of Ethans. I'm friends with three, including you.
Uh huh.
And to my knowledge, well, actually, that's not even to my knowledge. I know for a fact that all three Ethans don't have a gallbladder. So if
Wow.
you, as a listener, are named Ethan, do not get to know me. Do not become friends with me, unless you already have had your gallbladder removed, because something will cause your gallbladder to need to be removed.
Uh,
Anyway, um, we've got on a tangent. This
it's all
episode is
right.
yeah
Sorry, I'm not going to be in the rest of this one, so it's fine that
yeah
I took up the.
we had a small scheduling mishap, and so unfortunately, this episode is just Pat and I. And we talk about Londriel for about 2 hours, as these things go. It was pretty interesting. Obviously, we're recording this intro a little bit later than the actual episode was recorded. It's been about a week, so things are not fresh on my mind. But I remember that Pat and I went on quite a few tangents as well, and I'm too lazy to edit those out. So I hope you enjoy. A couple of things before we get started. Critical Grays is sponsored. Yippee, woo. Go and check out admiraltator.com and get some officially licensed malediction rulers and echo and mastery trackers and damage counters. It's some pretty cool stuff. Also, I just found out yesterday there's another podcast on the block. So, Toxic Mike from Deviant Dice Rollers has created a podcast called Beyond the Conclave. Uh, as of us recording this, he's posted 2 episodes so far. So, go check that out and support all of the content creators for our very small and niche community. And then, as always, go and record and play some games and report them to the maledictionstats.app. It helps us a lot because we get more fun things to talk about. But other than that, all links for all those are going to be in the description. I don't have anything else. Ethan is going to do his normal lore segment in another day. This will be a 3-day recording process.
We're really stitching these together. Is this the
Yeah,
Morida episode?
no. Actually, I guess that does remind me. So, our Seeker review series is going to go on a temporary hold. I have someone lined up for Morda. It will be a little bit before we get that going, and then we were planning on taking a break before Griza and Leanna anyway. But the plan is we're going to, starting next episode, have our Gen Con winners for both the 2v2 and the 1v1 tournaments on. We're going to talk about their process through the tournament and their decks that they brought and how it feels to be better than everybody else in the room. And then after that, hopefully we'll have some more reinforcement pack news. We haven't mentioned it a whole lot on the podcast. The plan is to wait until we've got everything, and then we're going to talk about what's good and what's not. And hopefully it's just going to be a whole episode of me arguing with Ethan and whichever guest we bring on about why Ethan is not as good as they think he is.
He's not as good in Polynor, but we'll get into that. We'll
Yeah,
cross that bridge when we get there.
we will. We will. All right. I think that we've been rambling for a while already. So enjoy the episode, and we'll catch you next time. All right. And before he disappears into oblivion, Ethan's going to tell us a bit about Londriel's lore.
So, Londriel is a very unique individual because probably almost unlike anybody else in this setting, she was born before the creation of the malediction. She was born in the great first city, before it was consumed by the hubris of the first children. She was very young when it happened, when the great collapse occurred and the first city was plunged into the horrifying, ever-changing tumult that it is now. However, she was actually kept in a crystal produced by her legacy, the Ark of Lamentation, when she was but a small child. She was eventually scooped up by an Order of the Shattered Throne expedition, sometime later, one of their first into the malediction, where they found her perfectly preserved and seemingly sleeping peacefully. The Order being the Order, they basically put her on display and called her the Saint in Amber, a representation of, a greater before time. Eventually, though, a random uh, a random conclave mage visited, the religious site that she was being stored at, and immediately recognized the crystalline blue surrounding her as being liastrum, which has some interesting implications, especially considering her age. Basically, not to get too into it, but Moloch was very early on in his history aligned with the triumvirate, and the Erisir, I believe that's how you pronounce it, basically the elven-like people of the setting that he produced specifically to be his servants, were members of Asterian Paradox. So basically he was aligned with the Asterian Paradox before it fell apart and became the successor state of the Order of the Shattered Throne. So a lot of implication there, but unfortunately Londriel was very young at the time, so she probably couldn't tell you. Anyway, this random mage decides that he wants to profit over this weird liastrum relic, so of course he makes the mistake of touching it. I think he was trying to steal it, but basically he activated the crystal, it exploded, and killed him very dead. But she appeared from the crystal unharmed. So she basically was raised, or did the last bit of her raising anyway, as a pupil and disciple of the Order of the Shattered Throne. And she actually took in a lot of their lessons to heart, very specifically kind of their idealism. She kind of took their zealotry and religious fervor and channeled it through her kind of early childhood, pre-fall lens of idealism, is I think what seems to be the implication. So she kind of took a lot of the nicer lessons from the Order, about their consistency and their, good works, and not so much about the horrible hypocrisy and greed and zealotry. And it was cool for a while, but elves were kind of out of fashion by the time she came of age. And a lot of the more conservative and senior members of the Order were worried about her origins and her potential ties to Moloch. It wasn't as simple as, one group having sway over the other. There were people who also liked her within the Order. So eventually she was basically banished, but considering it's the Order, that was a very light punishment. We've seen what they do to people they don't like. And she was basically banished over into the kind of northeastern archipelago where the Order is located. Sorry, where the Circle is located. I just woke up, sorry. She was basically banished into that northeastern archipelago where the Conclave of the Spears holds sway, where she was welcomed with open arms, partially because the people there were like, well, we can probably use her as a very good political pawn, She's this relic of a forgotten age. We can use her against the Order. Under Polynor, the goat, the man himself, who was her mentor, her teacher, she became extremely adept at liastrum magic. However, that whole goody two-shoes thing came around again, and she basically realized, hey, are we telling people that this stuff gives you cancer if you use it enough? And what's more, is she was basically able to tell, probably with the help of her legacy, which we'll get to in a moment, that liastrum fundamentally damages reality where it's used. It's not just that it's bad for you, it's bad for the actual land and surrounding air you use it in. And she, being the young idealist that she was, Did the one thing you're not supposed to do in the circle. And sorry. Did the one thing you're not supposed to do in the conclave, which is tell outsiders about the downsides of your products. She basically just told the world this stuff's really dangerous. You should be a lot more careful, at least with how you use it. And of course, for this, her and Polydor were put on trial. And this is the trial. Like, this was a long time coming. And while this was a good excuse, it was also the other Nexi were worried about Polydor's meteoric rise. So this was kind of just a very good opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. And Polydor, for his part, said nothing. He didn't testify in his own defense, which, as outsiders, we probably know had something to do with his own relationship with the Runefold Ward and how he's kind of in connection with Moloch, or perhaps some shard of Moloch, and probably has his own agenda, but she didn't know that. She just knew that this man that she greatly respected did nothing to help her in her greatest time of need. So she was also banished, stripped of her title. They probably would have done more to her if not for the legacy that seems to specifically protect her from magical stuff. And she's basically now taken it upon herself to try and heal the world. She's like, I gotta go into the malediction. I gotta fix all this stuff. I can't let the world fall into chaos once again. And she's wisely decided to basically take the weight of the world onto her shoulders. We'll see how far that gets her. She is in a very unique position to do something about it, though, because of the Ark of Lamentation, which is her legacy. It is her headband, and the text specifically states that any attempts to separate the headband from her have ended horribly, and we don't know if this means like she has to have it around her or if it's literally attached to her head forever. What seems to be the case, though, is that nobody knows where it came from, including her, because, it was probably, put on her when she was very young, right before everything exploded. But it has an extremely powerful effect where it basically nullifies magic, and what's more, it seems to heal the wounds in reality that liastrum specifically causes. And, that's why she's hexproof in the game. She's got this magical headband that basically just tells magic no and tries to, set the world back to what it was before the intervention of magic. Nobody knows what soul was made to make the legacy, but it must have been somebody with pretty pure intentions and with the idea to keep the world, stable. So now she has ties to both the more idealistic groups within the Order and the Conclave, and that's why she kind of has access to the resources of both. She's definitely, I'd say, probably the best person to be a Seeker in this whole lineup. Her cause is very justified because basically all of the other Seekers are taking magic, what form of magic, the four key kind of forms of magic, to some extreme to get what they want or to find answers. And she's the only one being like, hey guys, we almost destroyed the planet before. Maybe this isn't worth it. Maybe all the power politics that we get out of the use of magic is not worth justification. But of course, that puts her against basically most of the powerful people on the planet. So she's kind of a real freedom fighter in her own way.
She's surprisingly altruistic for who in game has kind of been one of the two main villains of like the first season. Like her and Sigrith are just constantly crapped on online. And
Well, yeah, I think it's mainly because like this game is kind of like well, it's like a power fantasy. I get to be a cool guy with cool access to magic. It's diegetic, you see. She's the one coming in and being like, no, you shouldn't be doing that.
right.
That's a bad idea.
Well, with the power of editing magic, we're going to go and talk to Pat now. But thank you for coming on 2 weeks after this original episode was recorded to give us a taste of the lore. All right, and I'm joined tonight by Pat from the Seekers of the Malediction YouTube channel. Bit of a celebrity in these parts. Why don't you introduce yourself and kind of let the listener know how you got into the game and I don't know, just how you ended up here, I suppose.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Pat. Pat on the Discord with Seekers of Malediction, our YouTube channel. At the end, I got into the game Adepticon 2025. It's kind of a long story, but I got the wrong weekend for Adepticon. found out while driving to Adepticon, which luckily it's in Milwaukee, so it wasn't a far drive. So I didn't make it to like the majority of that Adepticon because I just thought it was the wrong weekend. But I did end up getting to go Sunday, and Sunday is like this weird half day. But when I got there, Zach was like wrapping up a kill team tournament. I ran into him. We were just going to hang out, walk the vendor hall and stuff. And he's mid-round, and I find him. He's like, you literally just got to go try Malediction. That's the only thing that you should do when you're here. I'm like, okay. So I went over to the booth, did the demo, thought it was pretty interesting. The guy that demoed me didn't like explain like charging or a lot of the rules, even though I was playing Thunderstep. So that was a little poor experience. But then after that, Zach already lost it like one round in the event, and he was like, well, I'm not going to win. So he just dropped from the kill team tournament. And then we went downstairs and played Malediction for the rest of the time. And you could immediately see the similarities with like, Zach and I, we have a huge background in all games, but we started with card games and we still carry it on today. And just the game that marries both the card and the miniature game, which we kind of more heavily favor now in the last decade or two. It just spoke to us. So we kind of just we're constantly thinking about it, texting each other, talking to each other. And yeah, we just go, we're both very competitive guys. And so we love pushing the limits, I guess, when it comes to games.
So as an extension of that, I mean, I guess like which games have you played throughout history, and what I guess like what have your favorite card games and favorite miniature games been?
Yep. Yeah, so it starts all with Magic, the Gathering. It was back in like early 2000s, and that was a good time. But then we weren't as good because Magic, especially in Madison, we grew up in Madison, so you have like Bob Mayer and just a lot of like Magic pros and really competitive Magic scene there. And so we couldn't cut it there. So we sold all our Magic cards because we would just pool everything together. And then we went to like go playing games that nobody was like good in, and we'd crush those games. So like we went to, there was a company at the time called Decipher. We started playing the Lord of the Rings card game, the Star Wars card game, Dot Hack, like just all these like random games. And we were just crushing them. But then if anyone knows what Decipher is, we have a saying that says Decipher, it's the art of killing a great game. They'd make these amazing games and then they just kill the game. And later it came out they like embezzled a bunch of money and whatnot. So yeah, that company ruined a lot of our childhood memories. But no, so then after all those card games and everything, the first miniature game we came out with, and we still play it to this day, even though it's long dead as well, is a game called Confrontation by Rackham. It was an old French company, and they really pushed the envelope with like miniature sculpting and stuff. They're actually trying to reboot the game, like not Rackham, but a different company at this point in time. So we played that. We played a lot of War Machine, and then just kind of dabbled in everything. Malifaux, X-Wing. I mean, Zach's played 40K. I've like played games against him with his stuff, but I've never played 40K like competitively. We played kill teams. I tend to stick more to like skirmish-based games. War Machine and Conquest, I guess, which is a rank and file game, or the biggest large-scale army games I've played. But I dread just like piles of gray minis, and it makes me so depressed when I just collect so many minis and they just go unpainted. So I try to stay away from those ones.
That's very fair. So you find Malediction, you pick it up, and I assume that the similar thought process of finding a game that nobody is playing yet and breaking it, yeah, that happens here. How did you guys end up? Like, what was the thought process behind creating the deck?
Well, yeah, I think we were just having fun, right? I think the game that like what really brought us to is like Zach pretty much told me to go play Malediction, and then he said like he told me the hook was it had counter spells, right? So Zach like immediately claimed Conclave, and I was like, well, if you're playing that, like I'm not gonna copy exactly what you're playing. So I actually picked up Vorendell first and was like trying to make him work, and then I immediately saw like a lot of his flaws, just like action economy and getting Vorendell stuck and stuff. So I moved over to Auric, but we're always looking at like all the different seekers and just like building decks, even though we're not playing. And I think both of us kind of looked at Londriel and we're like we knew we would end up there, but we're gonna have fun first. So I like built some Auric decks, and he was messing around with Palinor. There was a couple other. I think I played like Sigareth a couple games and stuff. But then it was eventually came time, especially with like after Adepticon, there was an online TTS tournament, and then the Madison guys announced this tournament end of May. So what is that, like 2-3 months? I'm like, okay, we got to find something that's competitive by the end of May, and that's where eventually we started messing around with Londriel. And I think right away you're just putting in like all the prevention spells, everything that like feeds her legacy. But through the games that I was playing on TTS, I noticed just like protection specifically just being so strong to like turn off the focus firing that you typically want to do in Malediction. So like kind of putting all those together, and the first time we played it, it felt very strong, but it was just kind of over the process of refining it over the next couple of weeks that we felt that there was nothing in the game that could quite crack the nut that was Londriel in terms of playing defensively. And I think that it's probably better now, as we've talked about it more and people have found out more strategies and how to be a little bit more aggressive towards her. But at the time, it definitely felt like there was nothing you could do right when we kind of brought it out. So
it's really interesting because I haven't played any games with a real Londriel deck, and I've only played against it once in one of the aforementioned TTS tournaments. And I was playing Palinor at the time, and his turn one was Londriel and the Gateway Guardian. And I mean, like, you can't really win from there.
That's a pretty brutal start.
Yeah, especially with my current thought process was at the time was very much just like glass cannony. Like, we're just gonna we're gonna cast a bunch of spells, we're gonna burn them out on turn one, and there's no way to do that when both characters on the board have spell immunity. But it felt like very early on in that game, like a deterministic win state, or a deterministic game state, which is not something that I have ever experienced in a miniatures game before. It's happened in TCGs, but usually you've got to be like really behind for it to happen. And I think that a lot of it was I was not good, and I'm still okay, But I think that this is probably like the most skill intensive, or like the deck with the highest skill expression in the game, because if you don't know what you're doing and you're playing Londriel, you're never going to have that situation come up. Like, you're just going to be playing a game at the same level as everyone else. But if you do know what you're doing...
Oh, I was just going to interrupt and be like, it's funny that you say that, because I think with our gaming background, right, that Zach and I's natural instinct, because this is so easy to play, right? Especially because positioning wise, it is not very critical, right? You just group up your guys and you make sure there's gaps to shoot between, and you make sure there's always a protection bubble. But I think what we were lacking, or really what we had a huge crutch on, is just our years of TCG experience and card game experience. So like, control was just a natural thing to us, whereas we are beginning to see and become more aware as people come more from the miniature side of things, that they have no idea what control means. Like, they have no idea how to make the value plays or what card advantage is. And some of these, like you talk about it, like, at least me and Zach do, and we probably do a poor job on our podcast because we throw out all these card game terminologies, and there's probably some people out there like, I have no idea what they're talking about. So I think it's funny you say that, where it's a very high level. I think from a positioning standpoint, it's pretty simple. But you're right. There's a lot of decisioning and knowing like what cards to play. You have to really know the game in depth to know what your opponent is going to do and how best to stifle that. But yeah, I guess there is a little bit of balance there for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even within that, like, when I first started, one of my first TCG experiences, aside from Magic, was Hearthstone. And I was playing, there's this deck called Reno Jackson. He's like this
Oh,
guy
yeah.
that fully heals you, which at the time was just completely nutty. Now it's like if that card was in standard now, it wouldn't matter at all. But and I would just play this control warlock deck where you draw a bunch of cards, you deal damage to yourself, and then eventually you have enough board clears and direct damage to your opponent's units that you'll eventually come out on top.
Yep.
And I was playing aggressive decks at the time and just kept losing into this. And so I disenchanted all my legendaries, crafted Reno Jackson. I was like, I'm gonna be, in legend. I'm gonna be winning all my games. And I just proceeded to lose even more because I didn't know, how to play control.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is a skill even for people with TCG backgrounds or whatever.
Yep.
But I guess let's just get started and kind of talk about the specifics here. And if you feel like you have anything that you want to add in, just go for it.
Sure.
But I'm going to start by reading off Londriel's card for everyone who doesn't know. So Londriel Spellwarden is a unit seeker Erisir. She has an accuracy of 4, a power of 5 on a hit and 3 on a graze, a range of 8, a speed of 6, a defense of 14, a health of 16, and then she's got 2 abilities: spell immunity, so whenever a spell would affect this unit, it may ignore that spell, and riposte, so whenever a graze is scored against this unit, it may retaliate after the damage resolves. So just looking at the Seeker card itself, is there anything that really stands out here?
Stands out? No. Like, in terms of her stats, like, there's people out there with a longer range. There's people out there with more HP, higher defense. Her attack damage is pretty normal, 5-3. But on a closer look, and it took me a while to realize what makes her so special, is that all her stats aren't the best, but she's often the top 3 of all the different Seekers, which makes her extremely well-rounded. And I think that if you were to back into some kind of equation how they balance Seekers, I think she would be probably close to the top, if not the top, in terms of how many stats she gets just for free. She's extremely high statted, kind of jack of all trades but master of none, which I don't know, I feel like that can either go in 2 ways of games. Either it makes that unit or whatever that thing is really bad, or the fact that they're so well-rounded and have so many high stats that it pushes them above kind of everyone else. And I'm sorry, did you mention her abilities, or were you just commenting on the stats at this
Yeah,
point?
I did. Both spell immunity and riposte.
Yeah. So I think the other thing is the spell immunity. That's definitely my favorite ability in the game. Not only is it strong, but in miniature games, I hate it when people touch my models. So whenever there's an ability that says "get your hands off my stuff" and you can't interact with it, I just love it. Again, that control, that feeling of control of knowing all right, I'm the only person that can touch this model, and it's going to always be where I rely on it, and nothing can really interact with it too much. So, riposte obviously on defense 14, often 15 with shield wall. You really don't want to be hitting her with small stuff, otherwise she's just going to get more value. But just all around, I think she's really solid.
Yeah, spell immunity just on a unit that you're guaranteed to have is kind of crazy. And there's some matchups where it's not really going to come up at all, but just having that as a guaranteed, I mean, it's for sure, it's the certainty of it.
Yep.
And there's only 4 things in the game that have that keyword right now. There's Londriel, Gateway Guardian, and 1 relic, and I think there's a guy in green, right? Is the Sestinar?
Sestinar, yep, has it.
Okay. So yeah, that's everything that has spell immunity. So it's, the fact that you're going to get to see it every single game is definitely notable.
But it comes with a hefty price where you have to know all the weird interactions Loot has ruled. So you have to constantly live in the forums and read every single post that is about spell immunity. That's the downside of playing Londriel.
Is there anything that stands out? I have read through the FAQs and I know that there's some wonky stuff, but for the listener? Is there anything that is important?
Nothing that, I say that with tongue in cheek because the joke here is that it feels like nobody really has a good understanding or foundation of how spell immunity interacts with everything in the game. But for the most part, I think it works the way most people have it, but there's just some really niche interactions that, like disembody. So if Londriel goes up and smacks you, and you try to cast disembody against, on your thrice murder to turn my hit from a hit to a graze, it doesn't work. It just, Londriel ignores it for some reason, which I think that's the big one that kind of confuses everyone and definitely makes spell immunity just that bit much more better. So.
Right, because disembody reads in a way that it's like the target of the spell feels like it should be the ally that you're saving.
Exactly, but I think it's because it's turning the attack die from a hit to a graze. It's like the active player is the one rolling the dice and attacking. So yeah.
Well, moving on, her legacy is the Arc of Lamentation. So it gives you starting echo of 20, and then 2 abilities. First is Warding Insight. So whenever a spell you play prevents, cancels, or redirects an effect, you get to look at the top card of your deck, and you can place it on the top or bottom of your deck. And then Arc's Vision. Whenever you look at one or more cards from the top of your deck, you may reveal one of them. If it's a spell, you get to draw it. And if it's anything else, then you place it on the top of your deck and gain 2 echo.
Yeah. Wow. So this is by far the best card engine in the game. It just draws you so many cards. The deck that I'm running in has 13 cards that can proc her legacy. So that's 13 times you can look at the top of your card if it is a spell, which I'm playing 20 spells, I think it is, in the deck. If you're drawing a card. If not, if it isn't a spell, you can reveal it as a unit. And here comes the really tricky part, is that the Arc's Vision interrupts I don't know, what was the first one called?
Warding Insight.
Warding Insight. So it interrupts Warding Insight. So you can reveal the unit, and then if you want to, you could put it on the top of your deck and gain 2 echo. Or you could still gain 2 echo, and you can move it into the bottom of your deck because the Warding Insight would still trigger. So the way it plays is you reveal it, put it on the top of your deck, 2 echo, and then Warding Insights finishes, and you can move it to your bottom of your deck, which just lets you rip through your deck ridiculously fast, along with some of the other cards in the deck. And so if you're in a game state where only one of these 2 cards bails me out of this game and lets me win, you have the tools to get you there and find it and then play it.
Which is so weird that this is the only game that I've played that has a instance of one ability interrupting another. In every other game that I've ever played, you trigger down the card and you resolve each paragraph separately. And so when I first played this Seeker, I wasn't on the Discords or anything. I had no idea of this interaction. I was like, this is terrible. I knew that people called it the best Seeker in the game. I was like, how? This does not make any sense. I'm it's so awkward the way the legacy interacts. And then I became chronically online and learned that, okay, it just does the thing in the way that is most efficient and makes no sense as a card gamer.
Me and Zach, by the time we went to the tournament, we figured out the right way. But beforehand, when we were testing and having conversations online, we just assumed that it didn't work that way, right? That's our logical brain. You can't have your cake and eat it too, right? Makes way too much sense. So we were playing it that way, and then it came up in a conversation, and we were corrected by the devs and some playtesters and stuff. And me and Zach just laughed. We were like, wait, what? Why would you? What? Okay, if you really want to. It was that conversation along with, this has since been FAQ'd or errata or rules updated, however you want to say it. But initially, the devs said that you could daisy chain protection, which means if I had 5 protection models all on a line, I could get hit on the first one. The first one could pass the damage to the second one, second to the third to the fourth, all the way down the line, which literally just I had games where Londriel would take Martyr's Vexillum, and then whoever got hit, Londriel would take it and then just distribute it wherever she wanted the damage. It was really silly, but thankfully they corrected that, which was definitely the right call. But both those two rulings, this one's still outstanding. Makes you kind of scratch your head and think for sure.
Yeah. Well, any last notes on either of these two cards before we move on?
No, I think that this is one that you can just, I feel like you really hit on good Seeker, like good design when both the Seeker and the Legacy want to be played.
Mhm.
And lean into it, because there's definitely Seekers in the game where like, oh, you only play the Seeker and the Legacy is just there for like a little extra something, or like maybe you're just leaning completely into the Legacy and you don't even ever deploy the Seeker, right? But whenever you can marry the two, I think it's a good indicator of a really strong deck. And this is definitely the case for Londriel.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and that might be what draws me to Polynor so much, just the way that his own ability allows you to play extra spells and then they're in the discard, so you're getting value out of that. Like, I really enjoy when there's synergy between the two effects, and this one doesn't really have the innate synergy. Like, there's nothing on the Londriel card that says, prevent, cancel, or redirect anything. But just the way that they end up working together in the full 30 cards plus the extra stuff,
Mm-hmm.
It has that synergy, which is really good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, moving into terrain, we have a little bit of input from Josh, our stats gremlin. And so Londriel's win rate by terrain, we've got no games recorded with the Noxious Flesh Gardens, a 0% win rate with the Deathshroud Mire, a 28.6% win rate with the Asterian Pathways, and a 73.7% win rate with the Starcast Halls. And so I'm going to read those out. I'm sure that we're all familiar, but they have the Arcane ability. So during the activation of an ally you own, channels you play cost 1 fewer echo while that ally is on this terrain. So why is Starcast Halls so important? Why would you not really want to consider the others? And then are there any other tips that you think is important for like placing terrain?
Yeah, I think you guys already hit on it. I guiltily I don't listen to all your guys' episode. I kind of like skip through to the interesting bits, which
That's
little
okay.
2 cents. If you guys would add timestamps, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, I mean the standard triangle terrain, just so that you have some of it accessible, regardless of what deployment zone you guys get, or like whatever deployment zone you get is ideal. And the deck runs not the deck I play, it runs 9 channels, so that's just a lot of value on top of all the other echo generation you can get. But on top of that, and this just goes for like, I think I play Starcast Halls with 99% of Seekers, and to me, it's just because the physical terrain placement or like layout is the most interesting, and I feel like can be utilized for the most advantages. Whereas like Pathways terrain, it's large piece, it's a wall with a gap in the middle. And then Death Shroud is just kind of a big middle area, right? Like that units can clump into. And Noxious Flesh Gardens, you really just don't want to go in it, right? So you don't interact with it other than kind of treating everything as obstacles that you can draw line of sight through. But Starcast, you have choke points in the big one. There's 2 of them between the pillar and the wall, and there's like a window, I always call it. The columns and the arc kind of formation. You can do cool plays of like picking husks up through the gaps or shifting through them. I just find that those more than anything, if you're an experienced player, you can just like make plays that push just a little bit you above, and like just knowing the game and mastering the game from that perspective more than you can with the other train options.
It's really interesting. I have definitely started to bring Starcast Halls with almost everybody, and that's kind of just been a process of me learning how the game interacts and just the different kinds of resource like systems that it has and what players are likely to. I mean, like, you're only going to see a limited number of cards, a limited number of echo, and a limited number of action points in any given game. And so anything that can reduce those, in this case, you're reducing the echo that you have to spend, is obviously going to be beneficial. And so that's kind of been why I've been relying on StarCast a lot. But I really like here, you put in our notes how the large piece, the 2D terrain is a must-have because the advantages are not the same as on the 3D terrain. And it's so weird that we live in a world that like the 3D and the 2D are not the same. But
Yeah.
like, what is that difference? Like, how does that translate to you, like, practically?
Yeah. Yeah. So especially we'll bring it back to Londriel, but choke points and creating a wall, like a front that your opponent just can't get to who they want, right, is so imperative and important in the Londriel matchup. And they're just like, if you pack all your units into a side or inside the conclave large terrain, there's pillars and there's walls, and you physically can't get as many models, engaging Londriel or Londriel's units as you want to. And it's kind of the same thing with like the arcing one, where it's like, she walls off and kind of completes the full circle in the medium terrain. You really, anything she puts back behind her, like, shield mages or priests or anything, like, you can't, other than shooting her, you really can't get into her. But with the 3D terrain, there's gaps, like those same choke points don't exist. So a larger base, like a Thundersteps model, he can go anywhere on the large piece of conclave terrain, which just isn't true in the 2D. And then that arc one too, there's actually small bases that can just walk right through it. You don't need to shift or do anything else. So that kind of defeats the whole purpose of like being able to wall off inside that piece. You can just walk something right through it, which is kind of strange. And definitely we did not. Zach bought the 3D terrain at Adepticon in 2025, and when we went into the tournament and we've been playing all this, I was like, can you double check on your terrain that like all these choke points are the same? And I'm pretty sure he was like, oh yeah, they're definitely the same. And like, it wasn't until next year, 2026, when we were playing in the 2v2, that someone brought the 3D terrain, and I was like, Zach, these are not the same. You've lied to me this entire time. like Thundersteps could just walk right through here if you wanted to. It's crazy. So,
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, as an extension of the terrain, as we segue into some general strategy, when you're placing husks at the beginning of the game, do you have any game plan for that, or is it just kind of, does it matter?
It does. Yeah. So the game, Londriel's game starts at, terrain placement is pretty standard. Make a triangle, make sure there's, you can get to the conclave terrain from any kind of point. And then also when you're placing terrain, you want to be aware of like the obstacles, which are the red parts of the 2D terrain, and you're trying to match them up with other red parts, right? Because if you, let's say it's pathways, right? And pathways, they have big areas of area you can go on. If you're matching up red to the path, the parts that you can walk on, that's not actually a choke point, right? It's like you're drawing 3-inch gap between that part to another part, and then whatever part the terrain is. So it's like probably 5 inches or something, if I had to guess. You're trying to match up red to red, so that way nothing can get through those obstacles, and it's literally 3 inches. So you can just stick, one large model there, or maybe two, and you completely blocked off that whole side from being accessible. But in terms of going back to your question with husk placement, I'm trying to slow down the game as much as possible. So, you definitely want to put Huss in a position where Londriel can get one, if not two. And the name of the game is just don't overextend, right? But if I can get two comfortably, while at the same time of kind of separating them as much as possible. So I'm talking about like putting them at the very top of the board edge or the very bottom of the board edge. Then your opponent's going to have to run to those to get them, which means it's going to take longer for them to get those and then come all the way back down and get to you. So that's kind of the game, but you got to be careful, right? If I get first husk and I put it at the very bottom board edge, then the opponent's left to just be able to put one right in dead center in the middle. So you definitely don't want that, right? So you kind of have to hedge your bet and kind of put it up more than you want to, a little bit more centrally, but you're trying to push the bubbles out so that they aren't deploying them too centrally, and you're definitely wanting to try to encourage your opponent to place husks as far away from the center as possible, because the last thing you want is for them to pick up a husk that's on the way to you, essentially.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it sounds to me that you're not super concerned with picking them up yourself. Like you recognize that it's a part of the game, and your opponent knows that too. So, like you're kind of setting it as the goal that they need to do, and then you're going to be the roadblock.
Yep.
To stop that. And
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I definitely don't want to start another discussion on mastery differential here. But, I mean, I feel like this kind of plays into, I mean, sort of the strategy about Londriel. I don't know where I was really going with that, but what were you going to say?
Well, yeah, I guess so the premise of the deck is that you can't lose the game if you grab one husk and then they have to kill something of yours, right? So if they grab all 3 husks, they still have to kill 10 points of mastery, right? You can't lose until they kill 10 points, or kill the thing with the husk and then pick up the husk. So if you have that one husk and you make your list incredibly difficult to kill anything in, hopefully throughout the course of the game, you will just grind your opponent down until you haven't lost anything on your side and you've come and killed everything on theirs. And it sounds silly like saying that out loud, but I've literally, like, the tournament in Madison, that very first one I went to, I think I didn't lose a single model all game. Like, none of my games, anything died. And it's just because you're grouping all your units together and everything has protection, you have prevention spells, you have healing, like just so many ways to outlast your opponent that nothing ever dies. And because nothing is dying and you're grabbing husks and killing their stuff, that to tie it into where I think you were going is that Londriel usually just crushes everyone when it comes to mastery differential, just because your opponent typically ends up on 0 or maybe like 10 points from just having the one husk that they might still have in their hands.
Yeah. Okay, before we move on, do you have anything to say to the players who have contributed to the 0% win rate for Deathstrad Meyer usage with Londriel?
Can we say that? I guess there are games.
Yeah, somebody, at least one player, included it in their deck and played a game and recorded it on Malediction.
Maybe they just need more time to cook. Maybe they're onto something. I mean, I think if you can, there was a game I had. It was Londriel versus actually Alan Mercer, and he was playing Sigurith, and he played Death Shroud, and he got to the big train first, and he just piled everything in. And I kid you not, we looked at each other for 3 rounds, with me like 8 inches away from the Death Shroud Mire and him inside it. And I was like, okay, we're just going to tie here, 2020. So I got impatient, and I came into him, which was a huge mistake, playing Sigurith. And he almost actually killed my Angel. And so I had to run my Angel away much. But then the game did end up on time, because I pretty much telekinesis one of his units and then demanifested it to make it drop the relic. So like neither of us killed anything over the whole 70 minutes or whatever we played. And the only reason why I won is because I had 20 from relics and he had 10, and we just contested a husk for the rest of the game. Wow. But I mean, so like if you can get the middle terrain for Death Shroud, see how it could make the Londriel bubble even stronger. But I think we'll get to a little bit later about how you beat Londriel. You definitely have to play the clock. So I don't know. That could be onto something there.
All right. Well, let's move on then. Before I let you just talk about some of your tips for strategy, Josh has included that Londriel has a 40% win rate in tournament data collected so far. She dips down to 32% in top-rated tournaments, which is ones where deck lists are required, and it includes highly competitive players. Londriel has an average mastery of 50.7 for a win and an average of 13.7 for a loss, which is the highest average mastery on a win for all Seekers. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, like I was saying, I think the Adepticon tournament, I ended with like 215 mastery differential,
and that's with me losing one round. And the guy in first place ended up with like 160. So I scored 50 more mastery differential in 5 games than he did in 6.
That's really crazy.
With Londriel. So I mean, if and to the win rate kind of thing, I do think that this is heavily skewed. I know that there are definitely people like myself in the community, and I've heard other people talk as well, where Londriel is very polarizing. I do think that she is a problem for the current meta. I'm not so checked out of the game where I don't think that Lute has the tools or is able to correct for it and address it. I'm actually pretty hopeful with some of what we're seeing in the reinforcement packs coming up. But I think because she's just so oppressive and so unfun to play against, right? Control matchup is, if you're on the receiving end of a control matchup, it's usually not fun. You're just getting all your spells countered, your pieces are moving, like it's just, you're not doing damage, you're not killing anything, you feel like you just got blown out usually by the end of it, and the game lasts twice as long as if you were just to get punched in the face really hard by thunder steps and lose right away, right? And so I think for those reasons you see a lot of players just choose not to play her, myself included. Other than when I played her at Adepticon, I haven't touched her unless somebody specifically is asking me to play Londriel into them just to test out the matchup.
Fair enough. Yeah, and I think that we don't have the numbers on like how many games. Actually, we do a little bit later. How many games were played? I'm interested to see, like how many of these you think were you. And
None. I can say for a fact,
okay.
none of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no games recorded. I think all these stat malediction app, which I think is amazing, and I've been using for the last month. I think I have like 20 some games recorded already, which is kind of embarrassing. But none of them are Londriel, that's for sure.
Okay. Well, never mind then. So obviously it's other players messing around with it, which no shame to them.
Yeah.
But I do think that, I mean, you kind of alluded to it, but there's definitely, like, there are some people who understand fundamentally how the deck works, understand fundamentally how the game works, and how the deck interacts with it, and what axes you need to play on in order to win. And, like, not everybody gets that. Like, I didn't get it until, like, after I just got completely ruined by it. So hopefully this episode will, help some people educate.
Yeah, and I think I know Alan took her last round. You beat him, in the final, and I tuned into some of Alan's games, right? And I think between him and one of the Australian players picked her up and was trying to play him, and like just watching, like again, I think it goes back to that card game mentality, and just also how I see the game differently than I think some other people do. I'm not trying to say all people, but when I play Londriel, like literally the only thing on my mind is what can I do to take the least amount of damage as possible this turn. Like if that means TKing something to, like, my favorite move in Londriel is actually they will go with an early activation that they don't think matters, and then I will take that model and I'll TK it in front of me so that I use their own model that's already activated, can't move it, and walled off. So they can't kill their own model, they can't move through their own model, and now I just bought myself a whole other turn for something that they thought was a safe activation, going with the priest, praying or something like that. I grab the priest and just drop it right in front of Londriel and say, okay, well now you can't engage Londriel this turn, so better luck next turn. And when you can move that priest out of the way, so your guys that want to actually hit and shoot and do with stuff can get in there. So it just plays like that, and mentality of how you get creative of reducing damage. I mean, there's a game I played that this was the last game I played not on a clock with Londriel. The game lasted 2 hours, and the guy ambushed Vorendell into my deployment pretty much, charged Londriel, and I literally spent the next 4 turns shifting away from Vorendell, bidding against him like every round and winning somehow, and just shifting away for the next 4 turns so that Vorendell had to charge pretty much, and that's all you could do. 1 charge, 1 attack. Okay, next round, I shift away, and we danced around each other for like 4 rounds. It was ridiculous. But but I eventually won that game just because, again, I wasn't worried about doing damage or doing anything. I was just my sole focus was how do I take the least amount of damage as possible. And sometimes that does mean getting aggressive and killing something if you can like reliably kill it to remove the activation or something. But other times you have to look for other means, right?
And I think that that's one of those things that, I mean, if your goal is just not losing, it seems a little counterintuitive to the general kind of gameplay things that you want to pick up husks, you want to
Yep.
kill your opponent's most powerful activations or whatever they're using to get them into the long game, whatever you're going to do to affect your opponent's strategy. And Londriel plays a completely different game.
Yep.
And
yeah, I know if I get to round 5 and we start getting 10 echo, that my cards are gonna do more than your cards that have 2 and 3 drops, right?
Yeah.
Or 4 cost cards, right? All the like I have those and they're really powerful spells, but most of my units are 7s, 8s, 9s. So when I start dropping my units, they're gonna do a lot more work than your little units are.
For sure. Okay, so we've kind of gone on a small tangent here, but let's bring it back. And are there any tips that you have? I mean, obviously, trying not to take damage is a pretty good tip. What other things are you thinking about during the course of the game? And what are some, I guess, like, what are some strategies that you use? The TK effect, that's kind of what I'm asking about.
Yeah, I mean TK is hands down, and I've heard you guys say it too. The strongest spell in the game. It's just so easily abusable. I think when they released Echo Sarsitan, which is a order card that says when you get hit, you can find another card in your deck, another spell of basic or elite, I believe it is, and then play that spell. That kind of broke my brain because it allowed you to play channel level speed at instant speed. So I played a game against Zog actually one time where he got to Onslaught with Vorndell and he said Onslaught and then he did his first hit and then I Echo Sarsitan and then I TK'd mid Onslaught his Vorndell away and just left him blocking pretty much the rest of his force to not come in. So
That's so stupid.
yeah, it's pretty strong. Yeah, I think that I think that the thing you need to be aware of is really you got to keep track of your echo and find, just understand the state and how much damage is incoming. Again, it's about like kind of planning ahead and be like, all right, this turn, Thundersteps is going to charge me. Let's say I take 9 from that. This thing will charge me. I'll take 5. You know what I mean? Kind of planning for worst case scenario, and then like playing your cards appropriately. And sometimes that means like firing off a Resonant Guard for only like 3 echo to prevent 3 damage. But like sometimes you need to do that because you need to start proccing your legacy and digging into your deck, right? So like I think that's the big thing, and it only comes with like repetition. I think is that like you got to understand how resilient your deck can be and what cards are going to bail you out, because sometimes you need to make not prevent as full damage to be able to like top deck the whatever the top card is, and hopefully it's something good. If not, you can draw it and get deeper into what you are looking for. Bottom cards. There are instances where like I will bottom a Gateway Guardian or an Angel or something like that, and it feels so bad because you're like, I want that, but I might have a Convoke in my hand, right? And I can play the Convoke later to reshuffle my deck and hopefully bring that Gateway Guardian back to the top, right? But it's not the card I need right now, so bottoming it is okay.
So when you're, I guess, like when you're looking for cards, is it generally situation specific or is it matchup specific? Do you have some cards in your deck that work against certain characters? I don't know.
No, I mean it's a great question. I think I've learned, and Adepticon definitely proved the point that 90% of the time what you're looking for, because you only have 10 of them in the deck, and only 6 of them really matter. you want the protection ones, which are the Angel, the Gateway Guardian, the 2 Exemplars, and the 2 Shield Mages. So there's 6 cards really in the deck that you're trying to find. And when you do find them, I just talked about bottoming the Gateway Guardian, but hopefully that's in a situation where you already have like 3 or 4, and you might want to like start chaining spells and drawing a bunch of cards. But typically, the advice is when you get a unit, don't put it away and drop that unit as quickly as you can, because 16 HP on Exemplar is like 3 or 4 wards of Arcanum, right? It's gonna that unit on the board taking up an activation, utilizing its protection, taking up real estate or space on the board where you can block off and position with is 10 times more valuable than any spell you have in your deck. So when you're really looking for those units, don't give them away. And this is honestly, who knows what would have happened, but I think I lost Adepticon because when he enforced balanced me, I threw away one of my shield mages, and that was a big mistake. I kept Echo Sarsatan and a Demanifest instead. And then the next 2 rounds, I just kept on digging really deep in my deck. I think I drew like 5 additional cards the next 2 rounds to look for a unit, and it just came too late. Where if I would have just held on to the shield mage, I would have been in a better spot.
So speaking about the lower unit count, we kind of talked last week in the Ingor episode about how, like, my strategy there is literally just to overload your opponent with action points. Generally, Londriel is going to be playing a game where the opposite is happening. I think that you get pretty comfortable, at least for the first few rounds, of playing with like 1, 2, maybe 3 units in play. Mm-hmm. Do you have any tips for like playing with lower action points?
Yeah. This is where the choke points matter so much, and the positioning. What you're trying to do. So Ingor could have 20 units on the board, right? If you make the surface area with putting your back up against walls or choke points so it's harder to get around, you're reducing the number of units that Ingor can put into you to just 2 or 3, right? Unless he brings a lot of range weapons as well, which range right now I feel like is at a premium in the game. And we'll talk about what to do to counteract it, but put in as many guns as you have access to is a great way to put down Londriel, because if you're just bringing guys or units that can attack and engage, you're only going to ever get 2 to 3 engaged with Londriel, and all the other ones are just going to have to waste action points running around trying to find a spot where you can engage into her. So that's where the positioning, it's not so much I wouldn't say it's as a positioning intensive as like an Ingor where you're like getting in your own way, trying to open up charge lanes and stuff like that. It's really identifying where on the board, okay, this here is where I'm going to have the fight, and this is where I'm going to stick my guys and not move and make you come to me, unless you give me like 4 rounds and then I build up enough force where, okay, now I will walk in because I have just a ridiculous amount of strong units and strong spells to back it up.
Fair enough. Any other like tips or strategies? Or, I mean, I feel like we've kind of danced around some general strategy, but is there anything?
I think I think that gets into it with, as we go on with other topics or sections here. I think we'll get a little bit more into nitty gritty, but I think that's for the most part the general basis of it. Again, I think it's not overextending, right? I think a lot of people lose with the deck because they just way overextend. Your goal is to get 1 relic and then just sit there. If you can get 2 comfortably without getting caught like separated, great. But even as soon as you get 2, your first action should be running the other one over to meet up, so you're not separated and not picked apart.
Yep. I think that specific fact is what won me my game against Alan, because I mean he was way too aggressive with his shield mages, and especially his TK usage. If I remember correctly, it was turn 1. He used a telekinesis just to stop me from claiming a relic, and I mean like that. Anything that I don't know, like there's such a small margin of error when you're playing for the long game, because like every mistake that you make early is going to compound over each round.
Yeah, I think that TKing off of a relic is just no, right? Ingor has so many units that like you're happy to have a shaman in the back just like stay behind and pick up a relic like round 2 or 3. It doesn't like the relic is just there for you to win the game. You don't really care about the power you're gaining from the relic, right?
Right.
But like for instance, if you're playing a Polynor, right, where you don't have as many activations, moving Polynor off that relic, denying him that maybe that fail piercer or something like that, that's a really strong play. And it could slow that opponent down because they're like, well, I really need this to go into Londriel, right? So
Yeah,
I think
that's a good
it's
point.
completely matchup dependent.
Very good point. All right, well, then let's talk about some cards, and then maybe we can revisit some of the things when we talk about matchups.
Sure.
So the way that we sort this out, as always, is our guest has chosen a card for the basic, elite, and unique categories, and then I, with my very extensive experience with this deck, have picked cards that I just want to hear Pat talk about. So we're going to start off with Rewrite Destiny. So this is a 2-cost channel spell. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You may place any number of them on the bottom of your deck, and place the rest back on top in any order.
Yeah,
Tell me about why
so this one is kind of an honorable mention. It was not in the deck for the longest time, and then Zach kept on telling me that he thinks it's good. And because I jam way too many games on TTS compared to him, I finally played it. And the first time I played this spell, it feels like I'm not into the lore as much, but like you tapped like raw liastrum, or you gotta it's quite the high. Being able to look at the top 2 cards of your deck, which then procs your legacy, which then means that if you want to reveal a spell, you can draw that card, or if you want to reveal a unit, you can gain 2 echo. And again, with what we talked about earlier, you can put that unit on the top or bottom of the deck while gaining the 2 echo. This is what just lets you rip through your deck so quickly. It's essentially like virtually drawing you 2 cards if you want it to every single time, and it's especially like just invigorating when you get a Rewrite Destiny and then you bottom the second card, and the other card is another Rewrite Destiny, and you can just chain these off one after another, and all of a sudden you're 6 cards deep into your deck, and you just feel amazing. So yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I remember watching your original like decklist video on the deck, and I was very curious as to why this was not included, because I mean it just interacts with the legacy that well. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like a no-brainer in a way.
I think it was really our Magic, right? Like the Magic the Gathering, like a card that scries 2 in a 30 card deck. Well, like actually no, but let me take that back. That is the reason why I feel so good. But it was scry 2 in like Magic the Gathering, which is just look at the top 2 cards of your deck and maybe you can put them on the bottom or something. That isn't a strong effect. But I think the fact that we play with 30 card decks, and it just like that's 1/10 of your deck that you're looking through essentially, even more after you account for the 7 cards that you've already drawn, right? It's like looking through half your deck pretty much with those. Well, not half, what am I trying to say?
Well,
I don't know.
the only reason that you would want it is just because your legacy will either say like add draw a card to this, or it will say completely refund the echo that you paid for it and then some.
Yeah.
So I mean it's just a cantrip. Like in any other deck, you don't care about the scry. It's just terrible.
No.
But
Yeah, this card's literally garbage in every other deck other than Londriel. And I think that like we even rated it because like when we did the initial card release, like we probably were like, this card's garbage. I'm sure we did. Not thinking about Londriel at all.
all right. For my basic card, I've chosen a very obvious one, the Valkyrist Priest. This is a 4-cost unit human. Has an accuracy of 1, a power of 3 on a hit, 1 on a graze, a range of 6, a speed of 6, a defense of 11, a health of 8. It has heal 2 for 1 action point. You can have an ally nearby or within range recover 2 health, and this provokes retaliation. And then you can pray 3, which is also 1 action point. For each other ally you own within 6 inches, gain 1 echo, and this provokes retaliation as well. So we've talked about Priest on the podcast before. if you need to know why exactly this is good, just go listen to the Sigrith episode that we did. What I specifically kind of want to hear your opinion about is when I was first getting into the game. I don't remember which of your videos it was, but I think it was just like a state of the game recap or something like that, and or maybe it was after Adepticon, and I was like, what are like the reasons that the meta is the way that it is, and what would you do to fix it? And the two things that you replied to me were changing priest and changing protection.
Mhm.
And I think that protection is kind of a difficult one. Like it's obviously very powerful, but like priest is just a card. Like it's just this guy.
Mhm.
And so what in your opinion makes this so oppressive, not just for Londriel, but just kind of for the game in general?
Yeah, I guess I'll speak to Londriel first. There isn't a unit in the list that does more heavy lifting than the priest does. Like they're literally carrying like the Gateway Guardian on their backs, and like I have all the other models. And I kind of say that jokingly, but like when you get a priest in the opener, it just the first of all the echo generating that it gets you is just ridiculous throughout the course of the game. But then, like, you would think that's where it would end. And then all of a sudden, they just start healing guys for 4 damage, essentially, because you're healing 2 on one guy and another 2. And the damage is spread out all over because that's what protection does, is just spread damage across all your units. Um, and then on top of that, they decided that this unit doesn't do enough, so they need to give it a range 6 weapon. So I love Londriel because I suck at rolling d20s, or at least maybe I don't suck at it, but it's always very frustrating when I get a bad run of dice. Mondo's really good just because you don't care about your dice because you'll eventually kill them. And I think if I were to keep track, I feel like my priests have more kills on units than like any other unit in the game because like usually I leave a unit on 1 and then a priest just walks over and like finishes it off and puts a cap in them. They just they do everything that you possibly could want in this list. Especially compared to some of the other units like the Exemplar, where it is not unusual for the Exemplar to activate and just stand still and then pass the turn, just because he can't hit anything and he doesn't want to move out of formation to hit anything. Priests just their activations are always impactful. They'll always get value. They'll always do something. In the rest of the game, I think that gets expanded. You can just take them in any different direction. I think in the aggro matchup, they're speed 6, they're praying, they're walking with your army, getting you echo, and then as soon as they're done getting you echo and you're out of cards, they start shooting people for range 6. I think Veil Piercer on a priest is just probably one of the best uses of Veil Piercer, to be honest with you. Especially like in Auric, where like a shaman can look over and just battle cry the priest then to start shooting for 5 damage or 3 on a graze. And like their models with speed 6, there's just no downside to them. They cost 4, so you're happy to let them die. You can throw them away to block something important or go contest a husk. I mean, there's just nothing in the game they can't do. And for something that essentially comes down and then actually pray, probably gaining you 3 echo turn 1 and cost you 1 net 2 echo over the course of the game, they're just too. They just got too much gas, essentially.
Yeah. I think that, I don't know, it's really interesting because each faction kind of has this 4-cost support unit. And, like, the only one that comes close is the Spirit Shaman, just because Battlecry is so good.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I can't even remember the name of the cultist or whatever it is that Legion has.
Fanush Disciple, I believe it is.
Yeah, whatever.
Yep.
No one cares about that card.
No.
And then the Conclave, like it's either Conclave Scholar or Artillerist maybe that kind of fills this role. And neither of them come anywhere close to how powerful. And so it's just an interesting testament to the state of the game where, I mean, we're kind of in a meta that's defined by yellow and the things that yellow can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that just comes down to Priest being a very good basic unit.
I agree. Yeah, I think think that I will be continuing to play Order with the next packs. Unfortunately, and they might have a good deal to do with it, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think that they don't even need to do like big changes. I even think like just bringing the prey down from capping at 3 down to 2 would be enough, just to kind of like not get as much of a return right away as when they come down turn 1. Or like there's times when like people run away from them and they can't keep up and prey and stuff like that. So I don't know. I just think they need to start trying to chip away and trying to combat her a little bit, because she's just way too effective, or they are. But.
Yeah. Okay, well, moving on to some elite cards. You've selected Telekinesis, which is a 3-cost channel spell, which allows you to place a unit anywhere within 5 inches of its current position, ignoring obstacles. You've already mentioned some really cool things to do with this card. We've talked about it ad nauseum, especially in the Polynor episode. But is there anything else?
I finished up my Morta matchup, and I did a deck review video the other day for her, and I was talking about TK, and in that I did say something that like it's kind of I've been thinking about. I don't know if we ever get to a game state, even like 3 years from now, where TK isn't just ridiculously strong and in every single conclave deck. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's really interesting. So, they just revealed today some of the spoiler cards for the reinforcement packs, and one of them for red allows you to move a husk 6 inches. And we'll talk about like the reinforcement packs and the spoilers in a future episode. But in the Arkansas Discord, one of the guys was like, "How is this new card not just completely busted?" And he was like, it is only 3 echo, and you get 2 of it in your deck, and it gets to like completely negate 10 mastery for a turn. I was like, well, yes, but there's only one time period in the entire round when you can play it, where it's telekinesis. You can play literally any time that you can play a channel, and it does the exact same effect, and then like also all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
And
not to mention, if I can, the shifting sands, which I think that's what it's the one that moves the husk. It has to be played before anyone activates. Right. So it's like information going into where you can play in your turn, where DK can happen at any point in a turn and can completely bone you and your strategy. So
right. Yeah, I really think that this is going to. I don't know if we'll ever see a ban list for this game, and I kind of hope that we don't. But I don't know. I mean, because this card isn't broken, but like it's definitely very strong.
I think it's just a staple evergreen. I don't know how you want to compare this in Magic the Gathering. If this is, I don't know, Llanowar Elves or Lightning Bolt. It's probably like Lightning Bolt. 1 mana, do 3 damage. I don't know. I just feel like it's gonna always be, if they ever do rotations or anything, I hope to God this is like the one spell that they keep on printing, just because I think it's not necessarily a unique effect to the game, but man, does it really show mastery of the game. If like people that are really experienced in the game, you can just abuse people with this pretty handedly. So I love it. I think it's amazing. Every time I cast, it's punishing. People like to give me grief because I rated the Ring of Time as really low in terms of a relic to get on any seeker. But people love picking Ring of Time, and then I play a TK on them, and then they use my same TK to punish me, and then they'll be like, "Oh, Ring of Time, bad, huh?" And I'm like, "Well, this is more of a statement for telekinesis than it is Ring of Time." But yeah, sure. So
yeah. Well, in your notes here, when you wrote telekinesis, you said that it was hard not to pick Resonant Guard, and so for my elite card, I've chosen Resonant Guard. This is a swift spell, 3 cost, and you prevent up to X damage that would be dealt to an ally from a single source, where X is equal to the number of spell cards in your discard pile. You gain Echo equal to that amount.
Yeah, this is usually why Londriel can just blow out games if she gets to round 4 or 5. Because when you've been doing all this work trying to kill her, and she's burning prevention spells and counters, and casting rewrite destinies to dig in her deck, and then she ends it with a resonant guard, and all of a sudden she prevents 10 damage from your thundersteps charging and hitting, and then also gains 10 echo on top of it. It feels pretty bad. So yeah, this is another one of those cards where you just read it and you're like, what were they thinking? Like hey, I'm all for it, but man, I've never seen like uncapped benefits quite like this in the rest of the game. And I think it's the only one where there is no ceiling to how much it can scale.
Yeah.
And kind of the reason why you have 20 cards in the deck is just because you're getting all these values from spells, and then you finish with one of these, and it just blows the top off, and all of a sudden you're playing two, a Gateway Guardian and the Angel next round or something.
Right. It's really interesting because the miniatures game aspect of Malediction, it makes it very back and forth. And having a card like this that allows you to accrue value over multiple turns that's usually a kind of game design thing that has to be like capped in some way. Some games, like the way that Magic the Gathering as a game functions, you're playing lands every turn. Each round, you're progressively getting access to more and more stuff, and that stuff, lasts between the rounds. Addiction's kind of similar, but like any other tabletop game, the stuff that you start with is the stuff that you start with, and then you're going to be losing things from there. I don't know. Maybe I'm just rambling.
I think you have an excellent point, and it's that thinking about that and how the game ebbs and flows. Right, it is a unique and completely different to Malediction or to Magic the Gathering or other card games where it is a slow ramp up. Right, like turn one, you can't play any of the cards in your hand. Right, turn two, you can play a couple more, and then by the time you get to turn 5 or 6, you can play whatever you want. Where in Malediction, you can kind of play whatever you want out the gate, but then it kind of, after you get that initial burst, there is this kind of slow build up, and so it really does like impact. I think curve matters more in this game than a lot of people want to think, and it's kind of the reason why I am on really low on a lot of uniques and a lot of elite cards, other than like builds like this Londriel build. It's because it's actually really difficult to play a 7, 8, 9 cost if you don't play it turn one. So no, I think you're onto something there.
Yeah. I don't know. My favorite TCG at the moment is called Flesh and Blood, which is one where rather than like building up over the game, each round cycle you have 4 cards in your hand and your opponent has 4 cards in your hand, and you kind of pit those two hands against each other. There's not really very much in the game that can persist between those rounds. And, so like if my hand of 4 cards, I use 2 cards to defend, effectively prevent 6 damage, and then I attack you for 7, you would use whatever cards you want to defend with, and then, try and attack me back. So it's very back and forth. Anything in that game that allows you to put an item in play or have an ally that, is effectively a creature or whatever, those things are, heavily nerfed compared to like just stat wise compared to the rest of the game. And so it's weird that Resonant Guard is not. Anyway, so let's move on to some uniques. Your selection is the Gateway Guardian, which I think is just kind of the coolest model in the game. Like this guy's just a fucking badass. He's a 9-cost unit construct. He's got an accuracy of 3, a power of 5 on a hit, 3 on a graze, a range of 0, a speed of 5, defense of 15, a health of 16. He has resistance 1, so whenever this unit is dealt damage, it suffers 1 fewer damage. Spell immunity, so whenever a spell would affect this unit, it may ignore that spell. And protection 2. So we've talked about this a little bit, but twice per activation, this unit may absorb damage that would be dealt to a nearby ally. Damage exceeding this unit's health is dealt to the original target.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's the literal, epitome of a brick wall. Like, literally the three best defensive abilities in the game, on top of 15 defense and 14 HP. I mean, he also hits at 5'3" for when you want to go toe to toe with him. But that's just a lot of defensive stats. I mean, resistance just gets so much more mileage on top of defense 15 because you're going to graze them a lot, and so you're pretty much going to do no damage or like 1 damage. And then with protection, you can, when you protect them, the resistance procs on it too. So if you're grazing Londriel or you're shooting at exemplars, which are defense 16 or something like that, he can just take them after you graze them and then do 1 less damage, which just is ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't really have too many notes here other than I don't remember if this was before or after we started recording, but the one game that I've played into Londriel, my opponent's start was Londriel herself and a Gateway Guardian. I was playing Polynor at the time, and man, just having spell immunity all over the place is really disgusting.
And a little tangent, there's a little conversation going on. If the Gateway Guardian takes the damage from a spell, can he just ignore the damage? How do you feel about that, Bodhi?
I think that spell immunity is not hexproof. And hexproof in Magic the Gathering is like if you become the target of the spell, or like you just can't in general. Like you cannot be the target of a spell. That does not stop something with hexproof from being destroyed by or damaged by something that says like deal 5 damage to all creatures.
Everything, yep.
And so, unfortunately, I think that the way that the devs intended for spell immunity to be is they get around that. Like if it's any spell, they can just be like, yeah, I'm going to ignore it. So if it's like a cataclysmic blast, at least the way that I'm interpreting it is they can just shrug it off.
I think what people are advocating is you twin flames my priest, and the Gateway Guardian uses protection to take the damage. And now, since I took the damage of a spell, I ignore that damage.
Oh, that is
I think if that happens, and that I know the devs quite well, I would hope that they would see the flaws, but it might quite literally break the game.
Yeah.
Because then you pretty much pass on spell immunity to literally everything in the entire list.
Right. Well, that's one of those things where like, when does the game just start viewing damage as damage?
Yeah.
Because like affected by a spell and taking damage are two very different things, and some spells cause damage to be taken, but
I agree. That's like a separate sequence. Once you've doesn't matter what the source is. Once you start literally applying damage to a unit, it doesn't care what the source was anymore. It's just damage being tracked, and so it shouldn't matter anymore.
Well, hopefully, the people with power make the correct decision. All right, let's move on. I have selected the Herald of Salvation for my unique card. This is an 8-cost unit, Human Hallowed. It has an accuracy of 3, a power of 5 on a hit and 3 on a grace, a range of 0, a speed of 8, a defense of 13, a health of 18. It has flying, so while moving, this unit can pass over any obstacle. Martyr's Blessing 5, so whenever this unit is defeated, allies within 3 inches recover 5 health. And Protection 3, so thrice per activation, this unit may absorb damage that would be dealt to a nearby ally. Blah, 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 blah. So I was really considering, after you mentioned the Echoes of Sarstan bit with telekinesis, I was considering changing, but the reason that I selected the Herald is I want to know about Martyr's Blessing and if you ever use that, because you mention at the start or near the start that your goal is to never have any units die. And this is something that it has an ability on the card that cares about dying. So, I mean, have you ever triggered Martyr's Blessing, or is this just here to be a beat stick with protection 3?
I mean, I think we're converting you to a Londriel player. I think you've seen the lines. You understand the plays. No, other than the priest, the herald's usually the unit that dies the most frequently in the list, just because you're gonna heal so much when it dies because everything's in a brick. So yeah, oftentimes, even though it says like the excess damage will go back to the attacker, I will gladly pop my Herald of Salvation to heal 10, 15 damage to everything else, within, what is it, 3 inches, I believe it is, of her? Yeah, and which, I mean, is quite literally often your entire list. No, she is great for that reason. And protection 3 is actually quite relevant as well. Like, she is usually the one that I want to anchor and put, in the front and center and have everything touching. That way she can just get her way from, if you want to double attack something and twin flames it, or make it that she can just, stave off all the damage if she needs to be. And then do that play where you pop her and heal everything else. So
yeah. So
quite relevant.
What triggers first, the damage going back or the healing?
That's a great question. I actually don't know. I think all damage is done, and then death effects trigger. So the damage would go back. And then I know they have an example in the rule book of like Cataclysmic Blast. The person that's doing the damage gets to pick the sequence and what they do. So you could, like, if you had another model on 5, you obviously pick the other model on 5 to do damage first, but then she'll probably just take it anyways and die herself. So like you do have some control as the active player in dealing damage of like who takes the damage, and then if you have if it's stacking triggers on death, that obviously comes down to initiative. But yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. I like to kind of add in a little subsection to this. Are there any cards in the whole game that you think are really bad? Like, I mean, maybe we've kind of talked about now, like, just the cards that are obviously terrible by themselves, but are there any cards that you might see sometimes in Londriel builds that probably shouldn't be there? Or some cards maybe that you've messed around with and, now don't make the cut?
Not really. I think the big thing that I see wrong with people playing Londriel, and this kind of goes back to, I know you're a Magic player and you understand who's the beatdown. We did an episode on this, pretty recently. But like Londriel is clearly a marathon sprinter. She has the body. She's a Kenyan runner, right? She doesn't have the body to go fast and sprint or play mid range so. Any kind of, in my opinion, any other type of build where you're trying to be aggressive or you're trying to go mid rangey or something, like, just is working against what she natively wants to try to do. And so I see a lot of people doing these kind of like hybrid builds, and they'll have like crossbowmen in there and stuff, and like maybe valorous commands and stuff. And it's just like she's never going to be as fast as Pollen or Thundersteps or even like Auric or some of these other seekers. So why are you trying to push her to be that way? I guess that's kind of my mentality on it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And there goes all of my hopes and dreams of winning anything with aggro Londriel.
I mean, hey, I shouldn't say ever. There's always still a game with variance. You draw the perfect hands. I don't know. I just don't know what there's, like I said, we said earlier and talked about, like, there's games where you want to, or seekers that you want to play the seeker, and ones that you want to play as a legacy. But I don't think there's any seeker in there. You're just both completely, and just doing whatever you want, right? As much as I would love to play a Morta deck that doesn't like necromancy out units and do her whole thing with tutoring, I just don't think it's a winning strategy.
Yeah. Well, maybe in I don't know, next year's Adepticon, it's going to be won by the Noxious Flesh Gardens Londriel.
There you go. Yeah,
it's coming. All right, let's move in and talk about some relics. As always, the boots are an honorable mention. At a risk of this becoming a top 2 list, we just kind of stick them there. You have some really interesting picks for your top three. I don't think that we've covered any of these before on the podcast. So your number three selection is the Helm of Wrath, which gives the equipped unit Berserk 2. So while this unit's health is lower than or equal to half its health, it gets +2 power. And while the unit's Berserk is in effect, it also gains Resistance 2. So whenever the unit is dealt damage, it suffers 2 fewer damage. It's crazy to me because this card is red and it's very angry, and it looks like the thing that would go in like your super aggressive red decks. And out of all of the decks in the game, the thing that it interacts the most positively with is the slow control blue-white.
Yeah.
Does not scream anything about wrath to me.
Yeah. Well, first I want to call off how much of a professional you are, because Berserker Helm, and you immediately knew what I was talking about. I actually don't even. I mean, I'm sure I know it. Like, I've read Helm of Wrath before, but I'd never. It's always Berserker Helm. So kudos for you. But yeah, I mean, do you know why I picked this?
Yeah. Well, as a fan of the Seekers of the Malediction YouTube channel, not sponsored, right?
Yeah.
I liked your relic list where you went through each Seeker and talked about all of the relics and how they interact with those Seekers. But yeah, I mean, turns out when you have a really tanky unit that wants to stay really tanky, having it take less damage is very good. And then also Londriel's, like, she puts out a lot of attacks in your average game because of the length of the game and also the fact that she has riposte. And so having those attacks do more damage is pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd ever take this one on Londriel, just because people just choose most of my games nowadays. Well, most of my games. Like, I feel like people know not to attack Londriel. But you put this on a protection unit, and it doesn't matter where you're putting the damage. You can get them down to half health, and then all of a sudden you've turned on resistance 2, so that anything else they protect is taking 2 less damage, which is often just anything grazing, just about. And if you don't want them to take any more damage, then you just pass it off to the people behind them, right? So, yeah, just access to resistance 2, which is so easily triggered, and you can just have so much control on it. The first time I did this was actually at Adepticon, and I just stumbled into it, and I was like, "Oh, this is forbidden knowledge for sure. This should not be legal." So yeah, he was definitely hitting me with like exemplars and stuff where he'd graze and I'd be like, "No damage," and he was just like kind of looking at me baffled, like, "What is going on? I don't know what to do at this point." And I was like, "Me too, buddy. It's the first time, but I'm gonna hit you back for 7 damage on this angel now." Yeah.
For your second choice, you have the Martyr's Exilium, which gives the unit. This unit may absorb damage that would be dealt to an ally within 3 inches. Damage exceeding this unit's health is dealt to the original target. And while other allies are within 3 inches, they gain regeneration 2. So whenever you activate that unit, it will recover 2 health.
Yeah, so this is one that you want to get on Londriel to have her gain protection, essentially, or even on a priest. But also the regen is like, again, it's the same reason why the angel dying is so impactful, because anything within 3 gets regen 2. So when you have 3, 4, 5 models within 3 inches of her, and all of a sudden you're healing 10 HP from the 5 models that you have on the game, and everyone's damaged because of protection and stuff, like, it just starts to get silly really, really quickly. So
yeah, I've become higher and higher on this relic. The first time that I ever took it was a random draw off the top, and it was just because the relic display was terrible. I got this and I was like, oh my god, I somehow found something worse. And I was playing Polynor at the time. It was on a spellbound big belly guy, and I mean, he already had the protection effect, but just the regeneration 2 aura is super solid. Like, I don't know, it definitely isn't as flashy as some of the other relics, but
I mean, I think that if you don't have extra protection, I've often had games where people are like, "Oh, the worst relic in the game," or like make genuine comments about that, thinking it's bad. and then I'll take it, and I'll have like a game where like Oric's in the back and I can't get him engaged with you, and you're trying to kill like another Husk guy or something like that, like one of my guys that has a Husk, or maybe a guy that's like about to onslaught, maybe it's like a Twin Blades or something important, and he's on like 1 HP, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, you got to get through 20 HP now to kill that one dude. So
Yeah.
good luck to you on that, right? Like I think it's just another example of why protection is so strong in this game and why I think it probably needs to get changed, because like protection pretty much reads like if you want to kill a model, you need to kill this other model first. Which I do think there should be kind of like some kind of ceiling where like you can punch through it, right? Like maybe if you do more than 5 damage of it, right, then like anything over 5 goes through the original target, or something like that, right? Just the absolute control to say this unit is not dying is kind of really strong in the game.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because I was not the only person. Like when I first read protection and I see the little number next to it, my first instinct was, oh, okay, that's the number of damage that it can pull from any given source.
Sure.
And I'm not the only person who's thought that. And then like you read it and you're like, oh, that's like a really weird way to like have a number. I don't know. It's very not magic coded.
And then their next logical is, well, that must be how many times they can do it per round, right? Like the entire round. You surely only get to do that. Oh wait, every activation? Like what? Like that doesn't make any sense. So
Right.
Yeah, it's super strong.
The important thing with the Vexillium is you talked about how Protection 3 is good. The Vexillium is not limited at all. Like your opponent can Cataclysmic Blast and you can just be like, all right, this guy is going to take all 20 of that damage if he needs to.
Yep. Yeah, if it wins you the game.
Yeah. All right, and then your number one choice. Actually, I before we move on, so you put in parentheses SP question mark next to.
That was spelling because I didn't know how to spell it, but I was hoping you knew what I would trying to type.
Well, you were close enough. You did spell Martyr's Vexillum, and it's actually a Vexillum.
That's what I figured there was a U somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what?
All right, so then you cheated for number one. You said whichever relic that would hurt you the most if your opponent gets it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of relics in the game, and I don't want to read all of them off, but give me some examples here. Talk about maybe some specific relics that you would grab for certain matchups, maybe, or I don't know. Describe this.
I mean, anything with range on Palinor. So if there's a Veil Piercer, Snap Chain, Tempest Scepter, I'm going to try to take it away from just because I don't want that extra range for him to poke me, especially the Veil Piercer with the +2, or the Tempest Scepter, which, all my guys are grouped together, so that's a lot of bonus damage. If I think that he could reliably get Thunder Steps or something in with a what's the blade called? Relic Reaper's Edge or whatever. Taking that away, or Fang. So like honestly, I'm just if you can try to take away those threats that are just, again, like every round I'm counting and seeing, okay, how much damage can they do to me? What can I do to reduce those damage? First in this round, but in future rounds too. Just making those picks and trying to play it, accordingly. So. Yeah, I mean, I think if you can make your opponent try to take the more defensive relics and stuff, or stick them on like Ring of Time or Cloak or, Martyr's Vexillum, especially if they think you really want them, right? Like the two I listed, Martyr's Vexillum and Berserker Helm, how many people actually want those, right? Not a lot. But if my opponent, after this podcast, which is, deep state and playing mind games with everyone, all the listeners out there, thinking that I actually want those ones, then I can take the other ones, right? It's just, again, I think that's why we play the game and why I'm not bored with hundreds of addiction, right? Each game is unique, and you just got to be cognizant of what each person can do with each relic. And if there's one that's really going to hurt you, you got to take it away from them. And I think that extends even further beyond Londriel herself too, right? Like if you're playing a matchup where like, oh my God, this got like Thunder Steps with Boots, right? I know Boots is good for everything, but if Thunder Steps gets them, he puts really good use to him compared to everyone. like you just got to take him away from that perspective.
So, I mean, if you're wanting people to counterpick, your top one here should have been Cloak.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
You know, it's really funny. There was one game ever that Cloak was the right play for my opponent, and he was able to just chuck Vorendal there. He out-activated me, chuck Vorendal like right into the middle of my, well, not in the middle, but like the edge of my pile of stuff, and was able to first activation the following round onslaught and like kill Polynor in one activation. And that was the one time ever that I've been like, man, I wish I'd counterpicked Cloak.
I'm gonna be real with you. I've been playing Griza games, trying to learn him, getting ready for some of the stuff coming in the reinforcements. And one of my favorite things to do with Last Whale on Spirits is when they kill it, instead of charging off and like doing some more damage, if my guy has a relic, I just like take a move backwards towards my guys to drop off. And like if you have Cloak and it dies, you can definitely just fly away and drop it in your deployment zone or wherever you want the relic to end up.
I mean, you can literally teleport, right? So it
Yeah.
can go anywhere.
Right, exactly. So wherever you want that relic to end up, if you have it at a guy, he's out of position picking up a relic, and you just need to bring it back to base or whatever. There's a use case for everything. You just got to be open minded, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're really in the dregs of the podcast now because we're defending Cloak. But let's talk about some good and bad matchups. So it's really interesting. Almost every episode that we've recorded, other decks talking about the bad matchups. Londriel has been mentioned every single time. But like whenever your opponent shows you their deck list or flips over their Seeker or whatever, are there things that you're happy to see or some things that you're less happy to see? And then into those good matchups, what kinds of strategies are you employing to like keep the game favorable?
Yeah, I think that's why I'm willing to admit that, or not why I'm willing to admit, I'm very vocal about it, but Londriel is probably a bit overtuned, is because like, yeah, there's definitely Seekers out there that I think have better game against Londriel than others, but I think that like every single Seeker, Londriel's already starting at like a 60% win rate or something like that. This is just how I view the game, right? I mean, obviously there's stats out there that are not the same, but like I feel very confident going to every matchup. The matchups I worry about, Thundersteps, I think can get a very explosive start, and it's really the aggressive, right? If we go back to again card games, right? Like control, like aggro is what's supposed to keep control in check, right? Being so fast before you can get set up that you just blow out the control player before they can do anything. And that's the way that the game is supposed to work. So naturally, it's Thundersteps, Polynor, and Ingor are the three that I don't want to see the most. But even then, just with the nature of the game, how we just start in opposite corners, it's going to take you at least a turn to get to it. I feel like there's enough time for Londriel in most matchups to get set up and get in her defensive position. But yeah, it really just goes back to if the Thundersteps Polynor player or Ingor can get a really explosive start, really good hand, they can attrition her down and overcome her. If she gets enough units or finds whatever she needs to find. And I'll put an asterisk, like I know you got blown out by Londriel with the Polynor game, but I think Polynor I am the one that I'm most scared of, because you have to he does have the some of that game with counter spells and stuff like that, and he can, I think, more effectively attack what like the weaknesses that Londriel has, which is being outranged, not being able to reduce the amount of models that you can engage to her. So setting up a gun line that help threats her gun line, because most of her things are only range 8. And then just countering, like if he's playing counter spells, countering those well-timed, Rite of Healing or Manifest or some of those really high-value spells that Londriel wants to play. If he can get those off, then I think that he can kind of steal a game away from Londriel from time to time. So I think Polynor, I think if if I played myself, I feel like I could pretty consistently win with Ingor, just knowing how I play. But I think that everyone can kind of make that statement whenever they're going against themselves of like, oh, I know how I would beat me. But I don't think that's like generally true of oh, Ingor is super strong into Londriel. But yeah, I think that's the best way to kind of summarize it.
So, I mean, quick question about that. I was kind of actually thinking this morning when I was driving to work about, this episode and who's the beatdown. And, one thing that you mentioned in your episode on that is like in your Polynor build, you took the counter spells out. I mean, those are kind of like a thing for the slower game. Like, if Polynor is the beatdown in that matchup, I mean, wouldn't he want to just like go full aggression?
Yeah, but then you run into the spell immunity part of it. So I think the Polynor in that matchup isn't so much pure out aggression; it's more of tempo. He's going to be hopefully you're still aggro, you're still playing fast and trying to win fast before you can get set up, but you're using I think his card advantage just in the early game of being able to duplicate spells and even the counter spells out of his discard might get him there in that small window of like if he can win by like turn 3, maybe turn 4, if you're really putting on aggression. And it really is too primarily because of the range. If you pick up, I mean, already range 12, if he just sets up 12 inches outside of Londriel and starts plowing into her, she's going to have to come into you really quick, right? Which she doesn't want to do because she's wasting action points on getting moving, right? Like that's really why Londriel is so good, is because both of my action points are used attacking. One of your action points is usually used moving into moving into Londriel, and then you only get one attack against her. But Polynor kind of flips that equation, and Londriel has to come into him and usually try to take him out.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. So what cards do you include in your sideboard to help with these matchups?
Yeah, let me take a look. So the sideboard is kind of all, and I've never built a secret deck in Malediction yet where it's like, yes, all 7 of these cards, I definitely know I'm going to be bringing them in for these matchups. Like, I feel like there's usually like 3 or 4 cards where I was like, okay, these are coming in for these matchups, and then these other 3, I don't know, maybe I'll feel cheeky or I don't know, something like that. But the ones I really want are Shifting Winds against the Polynor matchup. I'm going to keep that tech for myself in case I need to pull it out. Some of the plays, but I mean, obviously, range attacks going where you want them is super strong. But then also Custodians. Again, I think if there's a lot of early aggression, especially against like the Ingor matchup, where you have guys with low accuracy and not big attacks, that maybe these Custodians can get some free riposte off and do damage. And then if there is like a big hit that you need to turn to crit graze, you can still do that. But I think the big thing too is just making sure you like. I feel like a lot of tech in Londriel or matchups that people know, like if people know the Londriel matchup, they're usually cutting a lot of their high end spells because they're afraid of them getting countered and losing all that value. And so a lot of times I'll try to read my opponent and see what is in their sideboard. I think they're going to swap out spells for more units or something. I need to cut spells as well. The Ingor matchup is at least in my Ingor deck, I don't play any swift speed spells. It's all channels, all direct damage except for like a couple of draw spell cards. So in that matchup, like there's no real reason for in my opinion. I would cut those just to, I don't know, put in something else. I honestly forget what kind of is in the matchup other than Rush of Salvations. Those ones are again ones that I love the card and like more for the positioning aspect. I'd love to fit it into the Polynor matchup. I just don't think I can after cutting the Shifting Winds and some of the other things. But
any other points here on like matchups or I don't know, anything related?
let me read my own notes here, I guess. I did talk about. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the big thing here is like, and why I think Londriel doesn't have bad matchups, and I talk about the aggro, is because you do kind of see this play out more balanced in 2v2, where Londriel I don't think is nearly as good in 2 and the whole reason is because in 1v1 you have about 30 inches across from deployment zones, and in 2v2 it's 18 inches, so things can definitely get on Londriel turn 1. Whereas in 1v1, outside of like some ridiculous like battle cry, adrenaline rush kind of shenanigans, nothing is going to engage turn 1, and that's kind of part of the problem, I think. And that's like, it's literally just it's not even what cards you have in your deck. It's literally just how the deployment zones are placed and the way we set up the game that gives her even that one turn, maybe two, if I can do some things, to TK you off Huss or put Huss in a position that really puts you apart, that can kind of slow down the game and give her enough time.
I guess then that begs the question. There's some power in threatening tools that you have. So like, if my opponent is playing and they have 6 Echo available and at least one card in their hand and have not played Demanifest yet, like that's something that I have to plan around. So like, assuming you have a solid starting hand, how much Echo are you wanting to keep at any given moment? Like, I don't know. Are you wanting to threaten stuff like that?
Playing into Londriel or
Well, like as Londriel.
I mean, yeah, I'm always feel naked if I don't have 3 Echo. So if you can hit her Echo or keep her down, I do think that there's something to kind of be said about planting a flag and just going out. Like you can't hold on to spells hoping that she'll go down to 3 Echo and that, or to 0 Echo, and that's your opportunity to fire off your unmake. I think you're going to be much more advantageous just to literally fire it off turn 1 and hope she doesn't have the counter yet, right? Because the longer you hold on to that, the more cards she's going to draw, and the better chance that she actually did draw a counter, right? So if I'm playing in the Londriel and I have unmake turn 1 and it doesn't severely hamper what else I'm trying to do, I'm going to fire that off and see if I get lucky and I can put 10 damage on an Exemplar, pop a Priest off and kill it or something like that, right? Because that's a huge swing. So I think that you can't just like at some point you got to say, hey, I just hope they don't have it, and take your swing.
Fair enough. So, man, I had a point. Great. I am gonna have to edit. Sorry. No, it's okay. I got distracted by something happening in the other room.
You don't need to edit it. It's okay. You're a human being. They don't need to think that you're all omnipotent and on point with everything.
Okay, wait. So we were talking. There was counter spells involved. There was something about deployment zones, maybe. I don't know. We're past it.
We are.
Okay, so Josh, our stats gremlin, has included some fascinating win rate stuff that seems to go. This is probably some of the most drastic stats that I've seen. So there's no games recorded against Griza, and there are. I'm going to include the casual games here, just because. Oh wait, no, there are some games against Griza. 3 of them with a 67% win rate. If we include casual games as well, there's a 50% win rate into Thundersteps. Then we have 80 into Sigrith and 100% with one single game into Vorendal. And then all of the others here are poor matchups. So there's a 40% into Polynor, a 25% into Morda, a 25% into Auric, 25% into Ingor, and 20% into Karmamok. And Josh has a theory here. He says, Pat, please give your take. Most players either net deck her list and proceed to play her as they would a Sigrith or Polynor, more aggro than she should be played, or they go too control heavy and don't side out counter spells against super unit heavy lists and get stuck with too many dead cards. I feel like we've kind of discussed this already, but I mean that definitely seems to be the case.
I mean, as much as I would love to think that like everyone out there is playing the deck, and I'm this famous player across my 300 some subscribers that I'm sure all of them have watched. I think that people are still new to the game and they're not into diving deep into the strategy and like I think we saw this at Adepticon is like a lot of people just showed up and they kind of just started playing like a couple weeks ago or something like that, right? So I think that it's still in its infancy, and I would like I think there's different communities, right? Like I've joined a couple of other communities, right? And just see what they talk about, and it's very clear that like they have a different perspective and different thought on the game, and maybe only like one or two of them are actually in the Discord, keeping up with the competitive play there and stuff like that. So I do think that I don't know exactly where all these stats come from, or if it's just the stats in their app, but like I do wonder how many of these are just people playing Londriel for the first time and like playing literally secret decks or changing out a couple cards as well. I think that the app is great. I use it and I love this. I love numbers and stats, but like I only care about the stats from my own perspective, right? I think that there's just probably too much noise, and who knows what any of these numbers mean, early on. I know Josh might not want to hear that, but I don't know. That's kind of my take on things, and I know that Loot is trying to do the same thing as well. Like they're trying to look at statistics, and it's like unless unless you know the players, like like if I wanted to get a good read on the game, I'd probably ask you, Jabroni, Zog, Victor. You know what I mean? Like players that I see active in the Discord that I know are getting a bunch of games, and I would ask them to track their stats, and those are the stats I would use for the first couple months until we just get more data out there. I think it's a little too early in the game to kind of read too much into any of these things, unless you're literally going out and seeking specific people to ask to record their game and how they feel about different things. That's just my take.
I think that's fair. All right. So, any final notes here on matchups or sideboards or anything like that?
No, I don't think so. Just you're gonna lose to enforced balance. There's nothing you can do. Pray that they ban it eventually. We talked about you hope they don't ban any cards. I think that one might actually justify a ban. But that's the only card in the game where everything else is workable. Like even the priest. I don't want the priest to be banned. Just like I want you to little gentle nerfs. Like pray 2 instead of pray 3 or something like that. But I don't think there's anything coming back from enforced balance just because there's no way to play around it. Like there's 3 answers in the entire game. It's Runeforth Ward and then reversions, and that's the only way you can stop it, which doesn't feel good.
Or just play all your spells from discard.
Of course, yeah.
All right. Well, let's say that you've just moved to, is it the Milwaukee-ish region that you said you're from? Mm-hmm. Perfect. Well, you've moved there, or you're about to play in the finals of Adepticon. Sure. How are we beating Londriel?
Yeah. Well, if you just moved here, you don't have to worry. So I'm not going to try to scare you away by like playing Londriel and beating you with it. So that scenario is out of it. But if you're in the final round playing against Londriel, I think I think it depends on that. If you're playing Palinor or Ingor, you can probably play legitimately. But then even then, there's things that you can do to hedge your advantage, right? I think you can absolutely stack relics on the board and try to win initiative and hope you pick board side. Now that is a very risky strategy because if you're playing against the deck that there's a bunch of 7s, 8s, and 9s in there that she will gladly bid. As painful as it is, and how much I told you to hang on to your units, and they're the most important card in your deck. If you stack a board side and give her one corner 3 relics really easily, I'll take that bid. But I think it's just something that you gotta have to evaluate. How much do you need to gamble on the opening bid to see if that's what would secure it? But then also just play the clock, right? If you can somehow get lucky and point sniper and kill a priest or something like that, and then run away with 2 relics, just be aware of the clock and just play all the different advantages you have. I think that's a good strategy. If you're going to go toe to toe with it and actually just try to take it down, I see a bunch of advice of people targeting the priest, and say you got to kill the priest, right? And I even talked about how much heavy lift, right? And it makes sense. The problem with targeting the priest that I find is you'll often do 6 damage to them, and then all the protection units, I just begin absorbing all the damage, and the priests aren't going to die. And now what you've effectively done is giving me 6 more health points for all my other protection units. And if you're really making it hard on me and you're doing a bunch of work, then I just let the priest die, and you got 4 mastery, and you still don't win the game, right? So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation there. Me personally, if I had the range attacks and I could put the damage where I wanted it, I would focus the protection units, because Londriel can't protect, the priest can't protect. We've talked about there's only six units in the game with protection, or not in the game, but in her list. If you start really putting damage on a single protection unit to take it out, it'll eventually cave in. And then I think you're in a pretty good position. So I think it's actually the protection units that you want to be focusing your attacks on. If there's a shield mage, it typically has the lowest stat defenses, so I would target the shield mage, as long as you're not like grazing for it and stuff like that. But shooting an exemplar, attacking an exemplar with defense 16 is often going to do a lot of grazes as well. So I think that would be my general advice for people that are trying to take her down.
So say we're just playing the game where I pick up 2 or 3 relics and run away. I guess it would have to be 3. Does Londriel have any game into that? Or do you just sit there or shake hands?
She's gonna walk towards you slowly and cautiously, right? And I think that a lot of people think, oh, you just make her come towards you, but like I'm praying along the way, and I spells like with Rewrite Destiny, and I'm building up my force, and like Londriel will move up first, and so you literally have 1 activation to try to take out Londriel, which I'm going to have prevention spells, and then my next activation is protection unit behind it. So when I mean run away, I don't mean to your corner and like sit there. It's literally like cat and mouse. You need to be like splitting your units and like in multiple directions and running 2 husks in 2 corners and the other husk in the 3rd corner. And if she catches one of them, hope you have like a telekinesis that can bail them out or something like that, right? Just to kind of stretch out the game and kill the clock. I would caution players too about that, like playing the clock and stuff like that. I know it's me, like I'm going to be, and we're in that situation, I recognize it. I'm going to be on you pretty hard to make decisions and play fast because I realize what you're trying to do and stretch out the game till dice down. And if you're just running away from me, then like you don't need to be doing a lot of thinking, right? Mm-hmm. So those early rounds should go really, really quick, is my point. But I think that like I played a game against Morda for Spar. He wasn't snow playing me, but what he was doing is he grabbed 3 early relics and then he was just necromancing 2 and 3 cost units and feeding them into Londriel and Jam. And I couldn't kill through the 2 to 3 dops and overcome the 3 husks he had, right? And that game we didn't play with the clock, but it took 2 hours and he definitely would have won, right? I actually made like a subconscious decision to be like, all right, well, I'm going to try a flashy play, TK Londriel, kill your relic holder, and try to pick it up before. But then he just like deployed Cestinar and murdered Londriel right there. But like that is one way to do it. If you can somehow Ingor just feed a guy with persist, right, round after round, and just kind of block her up and choke her and prevent her from getting there. That's one way you can do it. It's not necessarily like slow playing or anything, but you're just preventing her from ever reaching the husk, and you're feeding her units. She'll never kill 20 mastery worth of stuff to overcome that relic deficit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've talked a lot. I appreciate you offering all this insight. Is there any final notes on Londriel at all?
No, just a little bit of a teaser, I think. the reinforcement packs, I think that it's going to help balance out the meta and shake things up. I'm super excited to get my hands on some of the new decks. I'll be playing Griza, which I think will have a really good game into Londriel. I wouldn't say like a straight up counter, but I think he's going to do some really annoying things that Londriel players are going to hate. So I'm all for it, and I'm so excited for what's right around the corner.
Sweet. Well, we'll move into our final segment, which is community questions and hot takes. To start this out, during our Thundersteps episode with Victus Drake, we called out the fact that at that point in time, he had yet to beat you in a game. And we threatened him with the fact that by the time we get you on, if that hadn't changed, that bad things would happen. So, bad things need to happen.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we haven't had a game, so that's for. But I do think he has been dodging me, to be honest with you, a little bit, because I've reached out to him and he said, "Yeah, let's do it Friday," and then Friday comes and goes, and he never messages me or do anything like that. So I don't know. Maybe now that this episode is out, he'll actually get a game against me, especially because he's one of the play testers. So I've been eager to try to get some reps in with some of the new stuff that we've seen and pick his brain a little bit. Not that he would spoil or anything like that, but yeah.
Fair enough. All right. First.
I will say, sorry, you might have to edit this, but other than Victus, I think Zog has been chafing to beat me for quite a while, because I've been beating him repeatedly. And there is one infamous game that we were getting ready to do our first free-for-all game, and we were looking for a fourth player, and another person was building a deck, and I was like, all right, Zog, let's just play really quick as fast as we can. So we played like the speed chess version of Malediction, and I was drinking heavily at the time. And Zog did beat me that game, but obviously that game doesn't. But I will have you know that today, actually, he did beat me in a legitimate game with Liana. I was not Liana. Yeah, I was playing Liana. He was playing Vordel. So Zog has finally gotten his first victory against me.
Okay.
And I'm happy for him that he can now say he actually beat me, not just in speed Malediction. So
excellent. Man, we need to actually find time to play a game at some point, because it was close. There was us and two other people.
I know
2-0 in the tournament, so there was a chance, but I need to get more active in the looking for game channel.
Yes, definitely. Or we just have to set something up privately.
Yeah, that works.
I know that Jabroni is posting all the time, and unfortunately his schedule is exact opposite of mine. He's on from like 4 my time to like maybe 8 or 9, and that's like my family time that I just most of the time non-negotiable to get a game in. So yeah, we just keep on whiffing each other all the time and unable to get a game against each other as well.
Gotcha. All right. Well, first hot take. Vanilla is the best ice cream flavor.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this resonates deeply in me because I am a classic at heart, and so obviously vanilla is the best. And I find myself, whenever Malediction content is low and boring and new stuff hasn't come out, I find myself back into classic WoW quite often, unfortunately.
Okay. What's your favorite class?
Oh, in classic, it's got to be warrior. They're just the best.
I haven't played any, but I've definitely I've been like halfway in, like a little pinky toe in the pool, and just I don't know. Sure. I don't have the time, especially at this point. Like I'm so far removed from all of the people who are playing. Wow.
Yeah, but that's the secret: is nobody actually has time to play World of Warcraft. But somehow World of Warcraft comes and finds and tells you that you need to play it. All right.
All right. Well, I have one actual Malediction related hot take, and this is because in the Ingor episode, I got absolutely flamed for this. But Paxos Gorehorn is good, actually.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's incredible. I don't know if I would play it in Ingor, funny enough, but I do think it's an amazing unit. I think the drawbacks to it are very few. And somebody at Adepticon showed me this. It was my round 5 or my last round opponent, Thundersteps player, and he gave me the insight where I was like, haha, you have to charge my Londriel now. No, I don't. I was like, what are you talking about? That's literally what the card says. He's like, I just deploy a guy right in front of it and then I block it. And I was like, well, yeah, you could do that, I guess. And I looked to Zach and I was like, do you know this? So yeah, that was a pretty. Whenever he kind of showed me that, it really just like blocking Paxos to not charge, or if they can't charge, you can just run them out of just kind of threaten with them like ranges, and then if they are engaged, you can do whatever you want with them. You can still shift them away or run out of engagement and go hit something else. So I think that they're just a stat stick, or they just have way too many stats on them for 3 costs. So they're usually pretty good. And if they're dying, they're 3 mastery. Like, who doesn't want something that hits for 4 at 3 mastery? They're amazing.
I explained it at that time as like it's just numbers, and I love numbers, and like his numbers are consistent, and like yes, he has a downside, and that's something that you're going to notice, but there are ways of playing around it, and I really don't like everyone. And even I first saw him and I was like, man, this unit sucks. Frenzy is terrible. But like when I actually got him on the table, I'm very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, just know if you go to have him pick up a husk that you need to pass whatever relic he picks up to something you deploy him off of before you send him off to go create chaos and carnage.
Yes.
I mean, I think as much as I love him and I think he's great, like you start getting like 2 on the table at the same time, and you're like, okay, this is a little uncomfortable and unfortunate that your opponent can like literally plan 3 activations out, right? So you can get into trouble by like overplaying that stuff. But I think I almost always want the first one, in which usually justifies 3 copies of it in your deck because you want to hit that first one, and the first one feels really good. It's just when you get more than that you're like, oh, okay, we got to be careful here so I don't like let him set up some wombo combo of like 3 activations and then he kills my seeker like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's exactly that. Like, you just have to be aware of the downsides and then play around them. And if you draw multiple, like bidding is always an option. So take that, Ethan and Nick. All right. Well, to close things out, if you have any shout outs or final points on anything, feel free.
No, thank you guys for having me. I'm connecting with people, growing the community. I'm just always open to chat. I love Malediction so much, and as much as I might appear confrontational or strong argumentative, that's definitely a word, whatever that word is, on Discord and stuff, just know that I'm just trying to have I'm just gushing over Malediction, and I'm the same boat as you. I think most people, once they meet me in person, are like, wow, that's that he's not nearly as bad as he comes off online. I just have very strong opinions on certain things, and maybe when I'm typing and stuff, that doesn't always come across. But yeah, I'm pretty relaxed, and I love just talking Malediction to everyone. So yeah, let me know. Hit me up in my DMs. I'll answer you. I promise.
This is the good kind of celebrity that the world needs more of.
Yeah, I mean, I can't like I do. Like I said, Victus got had a little spat on the Discord, and that happens. Maybe things were said that probably shouldn't have been, and I apologize for that. But when you feel passionately and you care about something so much, it's hard to separate emotion from those things, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll end it there. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for Pat for coming on and talking to me for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Of course. Yeah.
I really appreciate
my pleasure. Let's do it again soon.
Sweet.
Talk to you later.
Bye.